All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 29 of the HubZone Small Business Virtual Summit. We have a great presentation for you here today. We have Mike Tumbarello and Sarah Myers, who are going to talk to you about the art and science of entrepreneurial thinking to drive business success. I think you guys are all going to really enjoy this, and this is a very interactive discussion. And at the end of the session, we are going to have a Q&A function. As you just heard, this is being recorded, but we encourage everyone to leverage the chat and the Q&A function. Let's keep it engaged. Let's get involved. Let's figure out different things. Talk to us about what you've done in your community. And, this is all about sharing ideas and figuring out ways to really support one another. So without further ado, I would really like to welcome our speakers to take over. I'm going to go on mute. I'll be monitoring the Q&A throughout the session, but I appreciate everybody, and let's get started.
Great. Thanks. Sarah, you want to start us off?
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for attending this session. We're very excited to share some of our insights and expertise over many years of being marketers. So this might be a little bit different than some of the other sessions that you've participated in, but don't worry, it's not going to be too soft, or we're going to offer a lot of actionable insights, we think. So welcome again to the art and science of entrepreneurial thinking to drive business success. And let's get started. Oh, goodness. All right. So I'm Sarah Myers, and Mike Tumbarello and I are partners in Geocom Media Group. We have worked together for a number of years. And we started off working in small businesses locally here, but we each have a background working with small businesses up to 500 employees. And we have developed kind of what we're calling the secret sauce through our background. So we're excited to share that with you today. And Mike, did you want to give some insight into your background?
Yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 6 startups, very large corporate, C-level exec in financial services and technology and professional services. I love teaching. I love coaching individuals to success at this stage in my career. So been pulling a lot of stuff from decades in the big corporate environment and working with a lot of large organizations as a consultant, NASA, GE, Bank of America, and all sorts of stuff, UPS. But also I've worked with hundreds, as a Sarah, of small businesses. And that's one of the key neat things that we bring, this diverse view of Sarah plus Mike, 1 + 1 = 3, we think. So.
Great.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to keep this short and sweet, but we are here today because we want to share this secret sauce with you. It's a little bit different than the other summit webinars. We're sure of that. And we want to share our perspective and how everything starts with the market. And that would be you. And the secret sauce that we're going to talk about is available to everyone. It's a way of thinking. And we're going to get into some examples of who owns the ice house, which is talking about entrepreneurial mindset, and talk about the principles of effectuation, which are a tool that you can use, and exactly how you and your business are faring kind of post-pandemic, but maybe a resurgence, and then into the future. And then, as Mike mentioned, we're going to do question and answer as time permits, and we'll be happy to discuss anything with you as we go along.
Here's, if I could add, here's the key differentiator, folks. This webinar is not just about facts, it's about concepts, ideas, and a way of thinking. And we're going to give you, especially towards the end, some tools you could apply, especially assessment tools for you and your organization to see if you are using the secret sauce or how to use it going forward to propel. We recognize that many of you are government, or all of you are government contractors. So this is maybe a little different for you from a general market view, but it applies. I've done a lot of work with government as well. It applies to every organization and every individual on this call.
So in this webinar today, we're going to talk about the concept of market first thinking even if, as Mike said, your customer is the federal government, decision making. You gain an awareness of marketing best practices. I think this is important to note. Mike and I are marketers, but we're strategic marketers. So in that vein, marketing permeates everything in the business. So that's something that people don't typically think. You think marketing is just advertising, posting to Facebook or doing a flyer. And really the way Mike and I approach things is from a strategic marketing perspective. Again, that permeates the finances, the operations, and the people. You're going to be exposed to the concept and application of entrepreneurial thinking as the secret sauce. We'll get into that. And again, the tools of effectuation that you can use and apply in your business. And an important thing to note here is you gain an awareness of characteristics of a successful entrepreneur, but also an intrapreneur. And that's a concept that even if you're not the owner of a business, but you're a leader or manager or employee of a business, you can still think entrepreneurially. And I think, and we think that that's the key differentiator. But don't get caught up in the terminology of this, calling it an entrepreneur. Even if you're not, quote unquote, the owner of the business, you can still think entrepreneurially. And also, we're going to be talking about some challenges and tools relative to the current pandemic. Again, we're kind of mid-pandemic, post-pandemic, and how we can succeed moving forward.
Yeah, we're definitely going to weave some pandemic, post-pandemic and intra-pandemic thinking into this. And talking about thinking, here's the thinker. And we don't have all the answers, but we can and will get you thinking about your situation, a new approach and next steps for you. The key is we hope to change your perception about opportunities. The bottom line is everything now is an opportunity, internal or external, including bad changes in the external environment. Everything can be what we call problem-based ideation in a formal sense. And speaking of that, change. Yeah, the only constant is change, but change can be used to your advantage. Just like arbitrageurs in Wall Street use change movements, small movements up and down in the price of an asset. Lo and behold, you can leverage change. And we'll give you some example here, and you may be very familiar with this report, but I'll go real quick through it. Some key points from a recent report. We didn't verify them. It's the supporting small business and strengthening the economy through procurement reforms. Number of small businesses providing common products and services to the federal government decreased by 38% from 2010 to 2019. The number of small businesses entering the procurement marketplace declined by 79% from 2005 to 2019. The 5% target of contract spending directed to women-owned small business has only been met twice. And as I'm sure you all know, the HubZone goal of 3% has never been met. So there's some challenges out there, and there's some things going on with small business and your role, whether you're solely government or in partially government, or looking maybe to expand your portfolio of opportunities. So then to overlay this, some more fun facts here to get you charged. Federal spending is increasing, the deficit is increasing as well. We've got a lot of divisiveness nationally and international and even locally on some issues. We've got a very frothy stock market. Look at what happened yesterday, over 500-point decline in the Dow. A challenging, frothy real estate market. Inflation possibly getting ready to rear its ugly head. And the US government, of course, is forecast, I doubt it'll happen, but quote unquote, run out of money by October 18th. The bottom line is we all need to be tracking, and that's another key point. You must rise above your day-to-day. You must get beyond your business or the latest proposal or proposals and be embracing change in your marketplace and in the environment, and also in the internal environment you've got. And my cat needs to move to the other room, so I'm going to let her out. Sarah, I think this is you anyway.
So you'll notice from the title of this presentation is we're talking about the art and the science of entrepreneurial thinking. Mike and I, look at entrepreneurial thinking as an art because it's the ability to create and innovate. That is what an entrepreneur really is. It's an imaginative approach to capture an idea and turn it into a reality. So it's a little bit on the softer set of skills, but it's at a fundamental level, it's really seeing a problem as a business opportunity. So the first part of our presentation will kind of go through the art and how to ideate, how to look at your business, kind of where you are, see what you can do, where the opportunities lie. And then we'll get into the quote unquote science element of the presentation towards the back half of the segment. And we'll talk about qualifying and quantifying some of the tools and functions. So here we go. We're going to talk about the art of entrepreneurial thinking. So the secret sauce, again, this is what Mike and I refer to as the secret sauce. It's powerful, available to everyone. It's basically the ability to identify marketplace opportunities and discover the most appropriate ways and methods to capitalize on them. I mean, that's really what an entrepreneur does. They see things differently than the rest of the world. And it's not necessarily, going from A to Z right away. It's incremental improvements. It's looking at process. It's looking at product. It's looking at your situation and saying, you know what, something else can be done here. Something can be enhanced upon, improved upon. It's really about being open to new ways of thinking, new ways of doing, new ways of operating. You'll hardly ever find an entrepreneur that says, oh, we've always done it that way, or we're not going to try that because we tried that, 5-10 years ago and it didn't work. So we really think having this skill and putting it to good use is important for business owners, but also, as I mentioned, everyone in the workplace, from the employees to the leadership to the owner. You think creatively and take ownership for your job, as well as the performance of your job and also the company. So it's all interrelated, and it really is kind of looking at things with a new lens and saying, what can be done differently to capitalize on where we are and where we want to go. Absolutely.
And what that basically says is this is critical to propel your business to the next level. It's so simple, but it's so powerful. And I have taught this book. Here's a picture of a fellow named Uncle Cleve. Clinton Talbert, his nephew, worked for him during the 50s and 60s, and he wrote a book. He's Pulitzer Prize nominated. And this book is an easy read. And what it basically is, and we're going to talk through some of the concepts that Clifton pulled out from working with his uncle. Uncle Cleve was an African-American man in the 1950s working in the Mississippi Delta, okay? And many African-Americans at that point, we know what that was like. And lo and behold, many of them had one option, and this is per the book, work in the cotton fields. But Uncle Cleve said, I want more than that. He didn't work there. Instead, he saw opportunity. He said, no one has an ice house. So hence the title. He bought an old ice house and delivered ice all over town. He also fixed luxury cars, even though he never owned a luxury car himself. He bought a bunch of manuals, bought a little building and said, I can do this, and further expanded. So a key point, and if you'll go to the next slide, Sarah, one key thing from Uncle Cleve, I highly recommend this book, and I've used it in my credit courses. I didn't mention, I taught at Johns Hopkins as a member of the senior faculty for 12 years, as well as community, and I've taught credit and non-credit, undergrad and graduate, and a lot of work courses and webinars on entrepreneurship and marketing. And the first thing that Uncle Cleve had is number one, choice. No matter what your circumstances, good, bad, or ugly, personally, your business is in now, the state of funding, the federal government spending, changes in the economy, the global economy, rather than circumstances, your choices shape your life and your business. We all own our own success. Sarah and I have come up with a, where we first really started collaborating on this stuff half a decade ago, something called the power of possibilities. And we brought this type of thinking in our own word of it to about 1,400 entrepreneurs who want to be entrepreneurs. Very successful, and that's where we caught this fever and passion to keep spreading the word. So the bottom line is, no matter what your situation, good, bad, or ugly, you have a choice to propel yourself out of it. Now, there are some exceptions you could probably think of, maybe medical or whatever, but choice. You all have choice, and your businesses have choice. The second concept, opportunities. Excuse me. Opportunities can come from anywhere, including difficulties. So problem-based ideation, if you see problems among your clients, among whether they be government or private sector, including, hey, it's price, it's delivery, it's flexibility, you can come up with changing your offer set, we call it, what you do and how you do it and how you communicate. It could also help you in business development by being open and proactive to opportunities and being a trusted advisor. Let me make a statement, and I hope it doesn't offend anyone, because it's not intended to. Very often, especially among organizations that serve government entities, okay, I see they get caught in responding to RFPs. They're on this RFP treadmill. They're trying to get these RFPs, then fill the spots, manage utilization, manage their bench. You all get that. And that's very important. But if you take your head up from that treadmill, there are other opportunities, including diversifying within different agencies, within different parts of the same agency, if that is the case, or in the private sector. We all, meaning individuals and organizations, have some core capabilities. If you understand your business, and we'll talk about that a little later, truly, objectively do an assessment, are you utilizing your core capabilities to go after opportunities? And the way you go after opportunities is take action. Nothing good can happen if you let inertia rule you. So I belonged to a gym way back when, and one sign they had at this gym where I used to live was, nothing good happens till you start moving. And that's true. And by the way, my cat who left my office here, I have 2 kitties, and you might meet her because she likes coming on webinars. Her name is Cash Flow. So just to let you know, my mindset is on results, and results for the individual and for clients. So action is key. You don't have to be great to start, but you got to start to get great. Seek knowledge, be a sponge. And I tell my clients and students this all the time. Are you embracing your marketplace and understanding all the little nuances within it? And that includes all the different levels of power in a given agency, for example, or an organization. What's the buying process? We'll talk a little bit about that. Who has the power? Who's a gatekeeper? And have you just mapped it out, even if you do it on a napkin, to make sure you're optimizing it? So you've got to be a sponge, and we call one of those MRWA, market research by walking around. When you're in the agency, when you're reading industry news, are you absorbing it and saying, what does this mean for me? Is this an opportunity? These sound like simple things, but this list alone can propel you to greatness. Focus on building your own wealth and financial independence. Manage to cash flow and manage to financial liquidity for your business. Don't get caught without, because dollars give you flexibility and power. My first business in the mid-90s came about shortly thereafter, the fall of the Iron Curtain. And we were able, because we had a strong base business, to go after opportunities in the former Iron Curtain, former Soviet things, that we wouldn't have been able to do if we didn't have the resources to do it. Manage your personal brand, including when you're networking and trying to do business development. Do you do PR? Are you promoting? When I say personal brand, I also mean your business. What is the brand of your business? And I don't mean the brand icon, the Nike swoosh. What do people think when they see you walking down the hall, when they get an email, when they learn of your business and hear your stuff? What does it bring? Because brands reside in the mind of the buyer. So you have to be sure of that. And how do you know what they think of you? A lot of times it pays to do some research, to ask. It's very powerful. Create an intentional community that speaks and supports success, seeks and supports birds of a feather. Are you surrounding yourself with others? The fact that you're all HubZone members is a great way to do it. But there are other informal networks as well to help you, including who you have a beer with or a coffee or a Bloody Mary with. And be persistent. So fail forward, get up when you fail. But there's alpha and beta error, we call it. And that is, you can fail by not trying what you should try, as well as fail by trying something that didn't work. So how do you rate yourself? Remember, this is about thinking here. How would you rate? You don't have to tell us, obviously, but you should be looking at these hopefully after this webinar and saying, hey, how am I doing on these traits? And how's our management team? And gee, how do I know this? Go ahead. Now, here's another book, and it's quite a complex book. It's tough. So I'm going to whittle this whole thing down and these concepts to you to a few. This is Effectuation, really put together by a lady named Sarvathi, a professor, and she did some research on successful small businesses and how they propel to greatness. So the first thing is start with your means, and this is key. In other words, often, and as a strategic planner by trade and training also, we tend to do a lot of analysis and strategy and planning. That's important. However, don't wait for the perfect opportunity. Go for it. So you may be thinking, gee, we need to diversify. We have a core capability. Let's go after this agency, this market, build a new service set, an offer set. You need to make sure that you go after it and you eat an elephant one bite at a time. So don't wait till you got every I dotted and T crossed. And part of it is set affordable loss. What can you afford to lose? So an example I use in my workshops is if I want to do Mike's Meatball, I wanted an empire of Italian restaurants. Well, maybe I don't have the time or financial wherewithal now. So maybe I do Mike Meatballs and I sell meatballs at the local high school halftime game. Maybe I deliver them. You get the gist. I start, how much can I lose? I'll invest some money in $1,000 in getting a cooking surface, etc. Leverage contingencies. Expect and embrace surprises. I'm never surprised when people say, oh my goodness, something changed, sequestration in the federal budget or whatever. Plan for it. How can you benefit from it? Form partnerships. You're doing that right now by being part of this organization, the HubZone. 1 + 1 = 3. Find partners with a shared vision and a shared size. Sometimes, in having managed partnerships in global businesses, large one, found that lo and behold, you want to make sure you have the same objectives as your partner. You have some of the same criteria and characteristics as your partners, meaning you don't want to be a 2 or 10 person or 20 person shop with a 40,000 person true partner that you may not matter to. So last is create opportunities. Make the future based on what you have, who you are, and the people who want to help you. Don't be perfect, start. Surround yourself with the right people. So that's the book if you want to read it. But again, I ask you, for not now, but for when you leave this, how are you rating yourself and your management team, your organization on this? Are you following some of these principles? And then again, how do you know? One of the things we use, Sarah and I, is we do 360s for organizations. And I've done this in the past, and the COO or CEO will tell me, oh, they love us, our clients, and blah, 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 or our people. And then we do a little research, objective, methodical, professional, and we find, no, they don't. And here's the status. Here's what's going on.
And Mike, the example that you have about the client you worked with who was actually a middleman, or can you give that example? Because I think that might be relevant.
Yeah. And thank you, Sarah. So I worked with an organization, a large professional services IT shop. You'd know the name, which will remain nameless here, and worked with another very large organization. And the COO, who was a friend of mine and colleague, and I had done work with, Pat, she asked me to do research on customers. And we developed a methodology, and I went out and with the tools we have and talked to her customers. Well, the first thing, she gave us a list of customers, and I said, hi, I'm from what's called Amalgamated Widget, and I'm here to talk to you about your relation. They said, who? We don't even know them. So they were working with my client, this subcontractor, who thought the client, including the contractor that they were working for, knew them, loved them, embraced them. That's what she was hearing as the COO from her 500 or so salespeople. And in fact, it couldn't be further from the truth. These people didn't know her or her business, didn't really recognize the brand, and didn't even realize. I could tell you they had on another level, they had a software that they sold, a job aid tool set that came with when people bought it. And they were asking in another set of research, hey, Sarah, what do you think of our amalgamated research tool? And they say, we don't even have that. And say, yeah, you purchased it. That's scary stuff. So don't think how you think and your people think every day being in your sphere of organization, that your clients and contractors and partners think the same way. Very important. And the way to find out is ask.
Absolutely. And it's important when we're talking about effectuation to make the time in your business to think these things through. A lot of this is relatively simple, but it's making the time and setting the process to evaluate these things on a quarterly, biannually basis.
Yeah, and sometimes just, it's a pizza party with your people, at least to get it started. And sometimes you want to take, go offsite or whatever, take the time. And we're going to talk about our business, where we've been and where we're going. And I want everybody to know we're all equal in here. Let your team, if you're the COO or CEO, talk and don't talk first to set the stage. Be cognizant of the impact you have and your role has, and listen, chat. What are we doing good? What are we missing? And pursue. And too often we don't do the little timeout. We're caught again on this treadmill of day-to-day operating and marketing and selling and servicing, all important, but we don't take time to do those things. I had another client in the UK went over to run a business, and he was so caught up, and his name was Dan. And I said, Dan, what do you do in the market? This business, it was a professional services ad agency, fairly large in the UK and elsewhere, it was headquartered. And he said, I'm too busy. Well, he wound up having to close it because he was so focused on the important job of delighting his customers and doing the work. He never took time to build a strategy, hone his business model. And this may sound a little soft to you, but this is critical to your business. Where are you going and how you're going to get there?
So here's some additional insight into the talents of successful entrepreneurs. And again, when we say entrepreneurs, we mean intrapreneurs. We mean entrepreneurial thinkers. So business focus, you make decisions based on observed or anticipated effect on profit. We're all in business for a reason, and that reason is profit at the end of the day. You can have other philanthropic efforts, but it's about profit. It's about making money. Confidence, you accurately know yourself and understand others. So that's important. We're going to talk about the market. Everything starts with the market. So you understand yourself and understand your market. You're a creative thinker. This is the art part of the entrepreneurial thinking. You take an existing product or idea and turn it into something better. Constant iteration, constant development, constant improvement. You recognize that you can't do everything, so you're a good delegator. You contemplate a shift in style and control. You can't be all things to all people. So what are you willing to let go? As Mike always says, anytime you delegate, it's never going to be done as well as you would do it. You're just going to have to accept that fact and move on. What can you delegate? What can you offload from your plate to really move the business forward?
And that's one of the biggest challenges to people running small businesses. And again, we define small as per SAP, and that's under 500 people. So it could be mom's pizza shop or a small 500 person organization as well. Some may not think of it as small, but we consider that compared to the Fortune 100 delegated. Go ahead. So I'm sorry, Sarah.
That's it. No worries. And you persevere through difficult, even seemingly insurmountable obstacles. I think that's a really important characteristic. You're going to see it through no matter what. And I think that's really key. Independent, you are prepared to do whatever needs to be done to build a successful venture. So you're going to mop the floors if that's what needs to be done. You're going to take out the trash if that's what needs to be done. You're going to make a presentation on a new initiative or a new product line if that's what needs to be done. So you kind of take it on your own shoulders and say, hey, there's an opportunity here. Knowledge seeker, you're constantly searching for information that is relevant to growing your business and or learning more about your ecosystem and how it could potentially impact you. So we're going to talk about ecosystem here in a few minutes, but it's important to have kind of this worldview of your business, your market, but also the things that could potentially impact your business or your market. Promoter, you're the best spokesperson for your business. You know it better than anyone else, so you're going to be able to share and be a good advocate for your business. Relationship builder, you're going to have a high social awareness and an ability to build relationships that are beneficial for the firm's survival and growth. Again, being part of the Hub Zone Council is awesome, good step, and you see the benefits there. Risk taker, you instinctively know how to manage high risk situations. And something that we always say with entrepreneurs is they're not really high risk takers, they're calculated risk takers. So you're not necessarily going to go jump out of a plane for your business, but you're going to calculate and evaluate and weigh your risk and before you make a decision. So that was from Gallup and Badal.
And there's a lot of books on the characteristics of entrepreneurs. One of the key things is flexibility, of course, and being able to pivot, which is a lot of what we're saying, being aware, absorbing the market and situation, and constantly pivoting after opportunities, because everything is an opportunity.
And so in summary of those characteristics, how do you compare relative to those 10 talents? Does anyone have anything they'd like to share as like how your organization has pivoted or launched a new product line or started handling things differently, especially with the pandemic? I mean, it's a global pandemic that's impacting us all.
You could certainly just talk up if you want.
This is Robin Kaiser with SoftDev. I mean, I think that so many of these attributes can apply to small businesses, especially in the federal marketplace. And if you don't recognize them, then chances are you're not going to succeed. And, just to name a few, I mean, as a small business and as an owner and founder, you tend to wear all the hats and then you grow and then you can delegate. So to me, delegator was a big one, especially in the last few years for me. I think certainly determined. We're all persevering through difficult obstacles and situations, whether it's internally within your own business or just in the federal marketplace. Even, if we think about even the executive order that we're all looking at and knowing that we're going to have to adhere to here in the near future related to federal contractors, it's ever changing. So, I think so many of these apply to all of us.
The key is, thank you for that, Robin. They apply, and then how are you embedding them in your day-to-day operations and your business model and your business development? I'm not asking you to answer that, but that's the key we're trying to get. It's so much of a mindset transition here that this secret sauce of entrepreneurial mindset, it's free, it's available to everybody. So it's huge in that, but you've got to do it. You know, that's the key. You've got to do it and change your mindset. And it can be incremental. You don't have to flip a switch overnight, but you have to embrace it and be asking yourself, how are we doing on these? How am I setting the stage as the CEO owner? And are my people thinking this way as well? Or are they just coming to work? Or are they just executing against the contract role they have right now?
Excellent. So combining the principles of the Ice House book, the effectuation concepts, and the characteristics of a successful entrepreneur, we think that that is the foundation from which to approach any changes brought on by the pandemic, and which to operate your business, and which to drive success. So as Mike just mentioned too, in a leadership role, or not, managerial or employee, it's important to incorporate this in your day-to-day, but then kind of bring others along with you. If you are a manager or leader, what kind of things can you do in your business to bring the rest of the staff, the rest of the team along with you, and start thinking in this way? And again, so it's a daily approach, but it's also a quarterly check-in. It's also every 6 months doing exercise, asking the people, asking your team for their thoughts and their opinions. Do you have anything to add there, Mike?
No, other than that, that's right on. And I have a fantasy. I don't know you folks, most of you here, but my fantasy is after this, a light bulb or 2 or 3 are going to go off and say, you know what? I'm working in my business, but the business needs to be working for me, the famous cliche. Let me ask my people. Let me just do a little MRWA and sit down with a whiteboard and say, how we doing? Or just ask them to submit you their thoughts on some of the things we've asked. How are you doing? How's your business doing? Et cetera. Just informally to get to thinking, and then see a next step maybe of how you can optimize. What we're really saying is mindset change and awareness of the opportunities from that mindset change, but you need action also.
That's a good segue here, but here's a couple obstacles that'll derail your efforts. Mike?
Yeah. So you are your worst enemy. I don't mean you personally, but we all are. So I put myself in that. You're all successful people, or you wouldn't be a member, you wouldn't be on this call. So I don't say that in a negative way, but we all can be our worst enemies. In both ways. You think success is going to keep going. Well, it doesn't always. And then even though you have success, what can I do to leverage that success to get bigger, better, more profitable, stronger? So you and your mindset, what are you thinking? How are you thinking? And how's that transferring? Your organization culture and collective skill sets. There's a famous saying, I believe it was by management consultant Peter Drucker. And hey, culture trumps, and I'm not talking about Donald Trump, culture trumps strategy all the time. I'm not sure I agree with that, but culture, and having worked with so many hundreds of organizations, big, medium, small, for-profit, not-profit, governmental, non-governmental, it is important. It is. So what is your culture, and is it supporting an adoption of an entrepreneurial mindset? And what kind of skill sets do you have? Have you done a skills inventory? Again, as a 6-time entrepreneur, even though started in big corporations, I'm not asking you to do a leather-bound tome here. Do it on a napkin. What are our key skill sets, and do we have gaps? Conduct a little informal or formal gap analysis relative to not where our target markets are now, but where the market is going to be. Okay. And again, that's number 3. Don't assume things will remain the same or go back to normal after this wonderful pandemic we're experiencing now. And I can't say it's over, obviously. It's been quite a challenge on so many levels. Number 4, lack of a realistic, methodical assessment of the 3 C's. So what are the 3 C's? As you run your business, okay, or jog later, you can be thinking of the 3 C's, the strategic 3 C's. The first is your customer or client, okay? What's going on with them? Are they in love with you and your business? What changes are they facing, including from the pandemic? what's changing. So one is customer. Two are those bad boys and girls called the competition. What's going on with them? How are they trying to outflank you? And the third one is your company or organization. So you should be thinking about them from those three angles, if you will, with everything you do, whether it be strategic or tactical. Innovation for your next offer set, meaning products and services. What the heck are they doing and where are they heading? Next, lack of a plan of action, strategy and tactics. Don't stay on that treadmill. I'd say the most important thing, if you need to after this session, is call a timeout like they do in basketball games, pull everybody in, take a knee, and say, even if you just do it with yourself over a coffee or a beer or something, and say, hey, do I really have a plan here, or am I just caught on this treadmill of responding to proposals? Now, that could be very lucrative, but it also gets you addicted, quote unquote, to proposals. Lack of balance between operations, marketing, and sales. And we find this all the time, and it's Sarah's mantra. The challenge is when we work with clients, and I've seen in other organizations in the past where I've worked, marketing can't outpace operations. And operations and marketing and sales need to be linked together. Sometimes they're not. So yeah, sometimes sales is offering vaporware, as we call it, as I'm sure you've heard. That's not what I'm talking about, or that's it. But are you orchestrating, are you engineering success relative to everything you do? So look at Walmart, for example. Walmart is less a retailer than an operational supply chain that sells stuff. And everything supports their low prices. You wouldn't expect to see wood paneling and valet service at a Walmart because it doesn't align operationally with their image, their brand, their pricing strategy, which is marketing, and their overall brand building and strategy. So is everything working together? Next one, number 7, is critical. Most people, and I started out in finance, okay? My graduate degrees are in finance, actually. But I've been a strategic marketer and strategist as well as finance. So I'm kind of unique in that I'm comfortable in both worlds. And one of the things I've found, and it has changed, is many organizations, and I won't mention names, but these are very large organizations, almost are not doing real marketing, especially if they're B2C or B2G. Consumer-oriented companies generally need to do some real marketing, but it's amazing that marketing, as I know it, having been in the business for over 40 years now, has morphed and evolved and deteriorated away from the true marketing. Years ago, the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, whose average tenure in a large organization, depending on what study you read, is 18 to 21 months only, because it's a lightning rod and whole stuff, used to be the right hand of she or he who was the CEO. Now it's the finance person, for the most part, or technologist. And marketing is engaged in, well, we got to do social media. We got to do tactical stuff. What about this ad? All right, let's do a new brand logo. Well, you can't do a brand logo until you know who your competition is. You can't know your competition until you know your target markets. You can't know your target markets till you have segmented the market. And interspersed there, you need to have a whole bunch of stuff around differentiation and positioning. So marketing has gone from a strategic seat, not obviously in not every organization, but it's gone from a strategic seat at the table, an important seat, in many cases, to a tactical, well, let's just put it on Facebook. And it's killing me if that's not obvious. And I'm seeing the pain organizations are undertaking by not doing it right, understanding and aligning their offer set, their product, and their pricing to what the market wants and building competitive advantage. And the number 8, lack of resources, human, financial, and systems. There's scarcity out there. I know it. We're entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur. Sarah's an entrepreneur. And I've talked about me, but she's done a number of startups as well. So with these 8, we're going to ask you again after this, how do you and your organization rate, and what are you doing about it?
And Mike, again, I don't want to speak for you and your experiences, but you might want to share the story about working with NASA, an organization that typically you might not think needs real marketing, but because marketing really permeates all the elements of a business and really helps craft your offer. I don't know if there's a story there you'd like to share.
Yeah, I mean, I went in as a sub to a large company, CSC at the time, and did marketing, and they were a large client of mine in NASA Goddard in the Maryland area. And you'd say, well, what they don't do marketing, who are they marketing to? But again, what we were finding was, how do we understand the key stakeholders, the key internal clients, and what they needed? Principal investigators, they were called, the scientists, the other people doing orbit and other things. And we went there and talked to the people within NASA and got a ton of insight and information, again, professionally done, moderated and scripted focus groups. We got insight into what they needed, and they found, lo and behold, they had some gaps there. Great organization, and we helped them build a strategic plan based on understanding their markets, both internal and external, to that group and to NASA itself and to other universities and researchers. So marketing is a lot about understanding your target segments, their decision criteria, their needs and wants, and how you align with it. It's not about just communication. In fact, when I do other work webinars for clients, etc., one of the things I do is I have sales like Ghostbusters with the thing through it, and also advertising, a Ghostbuster sign through it. And I open that up and they're thinking, this is a marketing guy and he's telling us sales and advertising are not marketing. Well, they're important parts, but they're one very tiny, slim piece. And that's why marketing is important to every organization. The problem is most marketers are not strategic marketers, and they don't think that way. They're trying to sell you, hey, I'll update your strategic, your social media post. I can handle that, or I'll build a site for you, or whatever. So, and that gets back to your lack of human resources and financial systems, et cetera. Do you have the right people in the right place at the right time to engage with your target markets? Thanks, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
So now we go, let's sprinkle some other stuff on this whole discussion for you. And the pandemic, unfortunately, is still with us, maybe coming back with Delta variant, other stuff, mu. And it's in many forms and with many implications. I won't go through that. We actually developed a 13-week course on dealing for organizations with the pandemic and how to emerge better, faster, stronger. But basically, the pandemic has been when it first hit and all that uncertainty, then when we're in the thick of it, and now post-pandemic. And Sarah, you could go next slide. So you can chunk the pandemic down. But the key thing now, I want to give you a real simple thought, this little weird image here. Relative to the pandemic, relative to your organization, are you a lion or are you a sheep? I've got nothing against sheep, certainly have nothing against lion. Are you taking control? Are you the king and queen of your jungle, or you're just a sheepish, and letting the world go by? Now more than ever, you've got to seize the moment and characterize what's out there, what's happening, what might happen in some scenarios, and go for it. So don't just do business the way you used to do it.
So now this second half of the presentation is really going to get into what we call the science of the entrepreneurial thinking. So it's really fact-based, it's research, it's measurable, it's facts, it's action based on data. So we all have KPIs that we're looking at, but how do we quantify our performance over time? How do we translate specific objectives and specific characteristics and lines of thinking into performance and numbers and data? So we're going to go into a couple different kind of action, little worksheet, little little pieces and tools that you can use in your business to start quantifying and taking action.
And I would just say this data may be different than you're used to looking at. It's not quote unquote just financial.
Mm-hmm.
It delves differently.
Absolutely. So everything starts with the market. As Mike and I keep saying and keep kind of drilling home is, you have to meet the needs and wants of your market. So whether that's government or not, there's still human beings on the other end of the table. So you have to figure out who that is that you're talking to, what their needs and wants are, and how you best match your products and services to those needs and wants. So think of a pond and think about the elements of a pond. So you have water in a pond, sure, but then you have sediment on the bottom. You have seaweed or grasses growing along the bottom or the sides. You have plankton and bacteria and algae growing on the top. You have lily pads floating on the top. You have a frog sitting on the lily pad. You have big fish, small fish, maybe a shark. You kind of see where I'm going there, trying to paint
Shark.
that. What's that?
A pond shark.
A pond shark, exactly. Maybe Deep Creek Lake here.
Sure.
But the point of that little visual is that it's complex and ever changing. And you may not see everything on the surface. If you just kind of look at the pond, you just see some vegetation growing and that's it. But really it's a complex and complicated ecosystem. And you have a similar situation with your business. So you have your core business, your core distribution, you have your direct suppliers, of course. But then are you thinking about customers of your customers, suppliers of your suppliers, suppliers of complementary products? So you can see where this starts to ripple out. What about trade associations? What about the HubZone Council? What about labor unions? What about Congress? What about competing organizations? So make sure that you're thinking about the full picture and exactly who can influence you and your business, or maybe who you can influence with your business. The ever-changing picture here impacts how you compete and where you compete and when you compete. So it really dictates your business model. And it may not be apparent on the surface. You may think it's relatively simple what I offer, but there are ever-changing impacts on you and your business. What does that ecosystem look like for your organization? And make sure you think about the investors and other stakeholders, the regulatory bodies that you may not be thinking about in day-to-day business, but that could definitely have an impact on you.
Absolutely. And I would add, to go with that pond image, ponds look different based on the season.
Mm-hmm.
So there's winter look with the ice on top. There's the summer look, spring, and even fall. So are there seasonal factors or cycles that you need to be aware of? And you can Google business ecosystems and get some examples from literally physical maps of them before you start working. And we work with some clients and they say, well, my ecosystem's this. And after a while, when you look at some others, it could be quite a complex document of everything there. And you want to ask yourself, am I dealing with all these players? Am I leveraging their role in the ecosystem? And within a given agency, there is hierarchies, then there's horizontal roles and responsibilities. You've got Congress as part of your ecosystem. If you're doing government work, what's going on there, and the agencies, both from a policy standpoint and an operating standpoint. So there's internal, external to your client, different layers there, and you can go on and on. And it also impacts your account development strategy. Do you have what I always am surprised at, or often surprised at when I talk to government contractors or work with them and interview, and they don't really have development strategies, account development strategies developed. Again, yeah, I'm not an academic, even though I've taught, and even as a consultant, but you could do some simple things. What are we doing to develop this agency for my sales or account execs that are dealing with it, or me as the principal? What exactly, who's the key players and their roles and responsibilities? What's their succession plan? So those type of things really are something different, and that's why we bring them out, because you need to do that to be optimizing your chance for success and growth and traction, short-term and long-term.
Absolutely. And to Mike's point there, how you compete in the marketplace is profoundly impacted by certain parts of this ecosystem. So we've kind of pulled it out into 3 segments here: markets, which are your current and future buyers, your clients; industries, your sellers, competitors, and other publics, maybe or other organizations like HubZone, and then your team, your management team, and your employees. So try to think of your business and how you operate in regards to these 3 segments. How are you addressing the impact the pandemic's had on these 3 segments? These really are critical to your success in the ecosystem. How do you start looking at the impact of the ecosystem? It's with these 3 segments. Just like Mike says all the time, start jotting it down on a napkin, like, oh, wait a minute, my team might be really hurting from the pandemic, not thankfully physically, but maybe mentally. The mental toll might be taking a factor. So, what do I do? How do I address that? How do we move forward? All right, Mike.
All right. So here's some of that, bringing some detailed thinking to that.
Mm-hmm.
Selling and buying processes may be increasingly complex and fluctuating. That's that seasonal stuff. So one thing we want to bring up is the concept of latent demand, and are you thinking about it? So if I'm selling microchips, let's say I'm Intel, selling to Dell Computer. Dell is obviously my client, and I need to do relationship management, account development within the organization to get my next gen chips embedded in their new design and partner with them. But I also need to be cognizant of the market that buys their computers. And I need to be segmenting that market and understanding what's going on in the business marketplace, right? The server marketplace is a subset of business laptops and desktops, and of course the consumer marketplace. So what is the demand base, and who is it that's driving maybe your clients' needs of what they're procuring from you, whether it be service or product? So within an organization, that's one thing. I just gave an example, but within an agency, it could be changing demands based on political climate, who's in control, et cetera. Think of the EPA and some of the changes. Think of what the IRS has been going through socioeconomically in recent couple of years. So think of the people and organizations that are buying from the agencies or businesses that you sell to. And the next one is decision criteria, changing requirements. So markets don't buy anything. I keep talking, we're talking markets here and subsegments and everything. But even if it's a B2B play, you're selling to an agency, the government, or a business, people buy, okay? So you need to be embracing the people side of things and be thinking through, even when you get an RFP. First thing I always do is look at the RFP and say, all right, what are they trying to do here? Meaning the people who put out the RFP. What are they trying to accomplish? What is their game plan? Why are they doing this? What are their pain points, right? And it's amazing, rather than start reading this and pulling everything together, just everybody read it and then map certain things out. We do that with marketing with our clients, a marketing mandatory sheet. we put together. It doesn't start with what should it look like or what's the brand. It's who's the audience, what are their decision criteria, what are their needs, what are we trying to accomplish, what's their budget, et cetera, et cetera. So the same thing goes here. Their decision criteria, what are they, how are they making, and who's controlling the decision, who's influencing the decision. If you're familiar with RACI charts, who's responsible for it, all those different things. And then we get to the buying process, who are the players? And what about supply chain delays, which we're hearing, and what I'm hearing from my ear to the ground are about to rear their ugly head again, and even stronger perhaps on a global basis due to the pandemic. So how are buying processes changing, and how can you capitalize on that, either from a sales or a delivery standpoint? Changing requirements. Again, what are the requirements of your clients and target clients, and how might they be changing? And if you're anticipating things, wow, if you put that secret sauce in your proposal, show them you're embracing their needs and wants, okay, and show them you understand their space. That's very powerful for most people. Again, don't just pull your boilerplate and try to pull together your proposal, but really put some key words in there that show you've embraced their needs, et cetera, and changes. And of course, the changing workforce, their location, communications or lack thereof with one another, hierarchy, their processes, and their availability. So again, when you're putting your proposals, when you're embracing certain markets, or when you're looking for opportunities to put your core capabilities into play, what can you do by embracing the changing workforce? Remember, change is constant, and change, just like financial arbitrageurs on Wall Street, change can make you a lot of money if you embrace it and understand what's going on and deal with it. I think you could flip it, Sarah. So, you good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So one thing is, what does your ideal customer look like? Have you aligned your target marketing efforts to effectively engage? Every customer or customer group has a persona, including agencies have their culture and persona. So are you building that in, and have you taken into account changes due to the pandemic? So I want to give you an image, and it's a little weird here, but my original training was in the sciences and biology, specifically behavioral ecology of all weird things. And when you look on the savanna in Africa, okay, you've got a lioness there with her pack of cubs, et cetera, pride of other lions. And when she sees a group of wildebeests or whatever, okay, she and other predators, but let's focus on her, she has what's called literally a search image embedded, usually genetically. They know that a small wildebeest is a better opportunity for her to take down and eat than a large one that's limping, one that's separate from the pack and limping or lagging behind, newborns, etc. So that sounds harsh, but the key is, do you have your own search image for your ideal customer? And when you map out your customers, what they're looking like, what they're doing, how they're behaving, and see what your ideal one is. Are you doing the things to get more of your ideal ones and maybe manage the portfolio of clients even to home? And that goes intra-agency, intra-organization via your development of an account strategy. So what are you looking for is the bottom line. And you should, and everyone should know, not just your salespeople, what you do and what you're going after. The other thing is, on a customer persona basis, introduce this concept. And I worked for a fellow who formed his tech company at age 64 and took it public just like he did his first tech company. And he retired in his mid-80s. Very interesting, successful, great guy. And one of his things though was, and this is as the marketing guy handled all his marketing and sales effort, he says, hey, I don't want salespeople. I don't want MBAs. He said, we do the work and we do it well, and that'll lead to more business. And why we had some disagreement on that, because you can't just show up and do it. You've got to sell it, so to speak, and make sure people are aware of it. You also want to make sure that your team is aware that if you're working on an account, they are salespeople, because in a service business, the people are the product. So are your people well-versed, not just in how to behave and act and look, so to speak, but also are they well-versed in a role, and are they rewarded, whether it's formal compensation or not, to manage the account and bring forward opportunities. Your best prospects are your best clients. Your best clients are your best prospects. So here we go to a little tool for you. Okay, back to this whole thing with the pandemic. How has the pandemic changed the situation and behaviors of your customers, markets, competitors, and your industry? You could list them there. We've taken lists, they'll vary for each of you. You might have some specific names of organizations. What's changed? It could be a second column, and then what's your response? So the key is based on the persona, based on how they look, what they're experiencing, can't get employees, can't get foreign workers to do, work, have supply issues, all those different things, have financial issues, have positive financial issues. These are not just negative changes. Mapping that out, and what's your response, and how are you going to go? And here's a simple tool for you to characterize and grade your current situation. So look at your team, look at team unity, team health, team satisfaction, your customers' health, your current business performance, and your future viability of the business, and fill in the blanks. You could give a grade. So G, team satisfaction, pre-pandemic, let's say it's Mike Inc. here. Oh, they love me. They're happy as clams, A. Now they're A minus because they have some problems. Give this, not necessarily the full sheet, to your employees, and maybe segment it based on their role within the organization and see what they say. And it could be team health, can be, you know what? You're not letting us work from home, but I need to, even though my kids are out, or I need flex time, all those different things. So you're looking at this at a time series over time, and you're filling it in. Again, it's a simple chart, but like so many charts we use with clients, this can really add some significant benefit to you. And it could also note that it's the process of filling this out, not just the data here. Remember, we said data in a different look is going to give you some real insight.
Has anyone set that time out and taken a look at their team, especially internal to their business? Again, we just recommend that you do set that time out and make the time to look for gaps, even if it's on the back of a napkin. Think through some of those elements of your business and your team. So, this is a SWOT analysis. Many of you might be familiar with this, but we think it really pays to put things on paper and have your team participate. I think this, really important to get that 360 insight from your team. Your team is in the trenches doing the work, so to speak, and they may have a different viewpoint than you sitting at a leadership role or the ownership of the company. So again, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, list your strengths. Your strengths are your business's advantages. They're internal to the business. What helps you compete? Is it a experienced staff? Is it a widget that lasts longer than anyone else's? What are your strengths? And again, asking your team for their perspective might provide insight that you are not aware of. What weaknesses do you have? Again, internal to the business, but what are areas for improvement in your business? Are you short-staffed yourself? Could you have, 3 other controllers or operators that would really help you be more efficient? Are you well versed in the latest technology change, or did Google change something for you and now that impacts your business? So you have to get up on the latest version of the software. Opportunities are how to apply your advantages in the marketplace, in the ecosystem. So these are external typically, but how can you compete better? How do you apply your advantages to be successful? And then threats are where you are at risk. Again, external threats. In my example of Google changing something, that could be a threat because you're kind of at the mercy of Google and their technology updates. How does that impact your business? And how are you, you're looking for areas where you might need to improve.
I noticed Sarah also, Michelle put out a thing to everybody from chat saying, hey, they have a SWOT for the Hub Zone Council. If anybody would like to do one for the council. That's the richness of this simple little chart. And we're going to give you the next version in the next slide, but fill it out, have your people fill it out. Don't tell them what it is. Let them tell you what our strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats are, and then look through it and learn and then synthesize and talk about it. But thanks, Michelle, that'll be helpful. Absolutely,
Michelle. And the key to this simple chart is finding those gaps that you're unaware of. And time again, it sounds so simple, but someone on the team will write something down and it really changes the trajectory of the business because they have the line of sight that the leadership or ownership may not. Now, this chart is a little more complicated because it has some examples in it, but basically taking the SWOT analysis and transitioning it towards strategic action is something called SWOT toes. So you take your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats and overlay them with your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And what I mean by that is if you look in this first box here, strengths overlaid with opportunities give you strategies. So for example, in this chart, the existing brand is a strength and new markets are opportunities. So we can leverage the brand to maximize the penetration of a new market, and that's known as an attacking strategy. Same thing with the weaknesses overlaid with the opportunities. So you're kind of taking your internal business characteristics and overlaying them with the market and ecosystem. So you counter your weaknesses by exploiting opportunities. So let's see, in this example, technology is a weakness, skills for technology is a weakness, but an opportunity could be a new service. So get people into training, try to leverage and build that technology and skills so you can offer a new service in the market. Same thing with strengths and threats and weaknesses and threats. So you leverage your strengths to minimize the threats and you counter your weaknesses to minimize your threats. So it's a little bit difficult to walk through this without specific examples, but as you build your SWOT analysis, you'll start making these connections where you can minimize your weaknesses and your threats and leverage those strengths in relation to threats. Mike, I don't know if I did a good job of explaining that.
You're right on. Everybody's pretty much familiar with SWOT analysis. Mm-hmm. This takes it to the action level and saying did your SWOT, what strategic direction can we learn from our strengths and weaknesses, which are internal, as you said, and opportunities and threats, which are external. And it can be a great way to propel you forward with some opportunities. I've used this and other similar, very simple tools here. We've got some not so simple, but where literally in an offsite with senior management came up with a new business, did $100 million in new business as a result of this type of exercise. a few years ago. So this is real powerful. If you're objective, let the team give you their input first before telling them what you think. And it's just a simple, put another way, SWOT is a snapshot. Boom, here's our strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. This now takes it to a time component. And if you're an accountant, it's flow versus stock. But good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think this is where the action starts happening. You know, you can start your planning, start making connections, and then start building a plan of attack based off these insights. So we're getting down to the end of our presentation here, just with a couple ways to think about applying the entrepreneurial thinking. We are fans of planning and we're fans of action. So everything that we've talked about so far are ways of thinking, but also tools you can use to enhance your position in the marketplace. So entrepreneurial thinking can definitely be applied to the people element of your business, finance element of your business, operations, and then of course, you know, the strategic marketers have to say the marketing element. But it is a new way of thinking, and it is an important thing that, again, you have to make that time for. You have to come up with your plan, but then also measure success. So look at your enterprise. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And then manage that going into the future. And also, when we're talking about people, do you have the right people in the right seat on the bus? And so often we kind of hire people and they may or may not prove to be in the right seat. And what we mean by that is, are they in the right position? Are they doing the tasks that fulfill them, but also the tasks that they're really good at? So there's a couple tools that we're familiar with, you know, to make sure your people are engaged and on the bus. But there's a simple chart where, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds on this particular element, but have your staff write out their job duties in a day, and then have them indicate what they really like doing and what they're really great at, and also what they sort of enjoy doing, but what they're good at. And then you can parse out those tasks that they don't like, but they're good at, and they hate and they're not good at too. So in your delegation, in your process of finding the right people for the right seat, you can use this quick tool just to kind of take off the top what they're really enjoy doing and what they're great at, and what they don't mind doing and what they're good at, and then see if there's any opportunities to kind of maybe remove some of those tasks that they don't like doing, but also maybe replace some of those tasks with another position. Mike, do you have anything to add on people?
No, I think that's, I've seen you employ that and it really works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it is, again, a little bit in the weeds as far as actual management of people, but that's applying that entrepreneurial thinking. Where are there opportunities to enhance your team, enhance and grow your team, to ultimately enhance and grow the business?
And the key there, just to make sure everybody got that, have them write down what they do, their responsibilities first. Don't tell them to rate it. Then you tell them after they've written them down.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, that's an important feature of it, because you don't want it to be leading in any way, and you want to get the most objective perspective of that. So have them write their tasks down and have them write what they do, because you don't always know what they're getting into as well. So there might be some opportunities for you as a leader in that exercise as well, to say, wait a minute, Sarah's spending so much time doing this task. I didn't even know she was working on that. as part of her job. So there might be some insight there. Also, on the financial end, finance is, kind of a necessary evil, of course, but are you reviewing and sharing and discussing regular financials with the team? So many organizations we've found are not. And by sharing the information, the staff is more connected to the overall objectives of the company. If they're kind of kept in the dark about what the overall goals are, how are they supposed to know whether they're meeting them, whether they're successful? And again, they're not as connected if they're just working towards a nebulous goal. I just got to sell 50 widgets today. And one of the examples that we run into a lot is people don't necessarily understand why the budget is created in the way that it's created. They just carry it over from year to year. And I'm kind of laughing because we had one client that said their marketing budget was $12,000 for the year. And we said, okay, so what does that mean? Is it working? Is that enough? And they said, oh, we don't know. We just carried that over from last year, and it was carried over from the year before. So there really was not a connection to efficiency or getting better, because they really had no idea. They had no way and no tools to measure truly what they were doing. And also understand and track your critical success factors. So as a group, if you identify those critical success factors and those goals that you're working towards, regular discussion about them keeps everyone on the same page and applicable, efficient. And then you can apply that entrepreneurial thinking. How can we get better? We set our goal to be whatever, 10 sales this month, but gosh, we could do 100 if we just tweak this part of the process. Again, operations, there's just so much. We didn't really talk about it yet, but the 4 P's of marketing are known as the product, price, place, and promotion. So marketing really permeates all elements of the business, but especially the operations. Have you had a conversation, or just thinking to yourself what your business mission statement is, what the vision statement is? Why are you in business? Some of these questions need to be asked fundamentally, because you do kind of get caught up in the hamster wheel of doing business, but not working on the business. And do you have processes mapped? There's so much opportunity in sitting down, again, even if it's on a napkin, and saying, how do I onboard a staff member? How do I make the widget? What technology is involved in this certain aspect of my business? So when you start mapping actual processes, the details, that's where that entrepreneurial thinking can be applied. Like, why do we do it this way? Did we inherit this situation? Did we inherit this distributor? Maybe it's not the best for us right now. This, as Mike mentioned, seasons change. Maybe it's not the most efficient. Is there opportunity? And again, if you invite your team to start thinking through process, you'll see gaps. It's just obvious to see gaps and places for improvement. And again, if you're working with folks doing jobs different from what you're doing, and Robin, you mentioned wearing all the hats. When you're wearing all of the hats, you can't possibly know the details of every element. So having staff that shares with you their process, you can look at it together and say, hey, why are we doing it this way? And it's really important to open the lines of communication in this way too, because your employee might be thinking to themselves, like, I have no option. I have to do it this way. This is what I was told and trained on. Whereas you're looking at it saying, if you change step 2 to make us more efficient, then go ahead. Why wouldn't we do it that way? So it's opening conversation, communication, and also getting into the weeds a little bit to find opportunities.
If I could add, and Sarah, we both see a client here, which will remain nameless. We've been working with this particular client, has outsourced all their marketing to us. They recognized they couldn't get the level of marketing expertise they needed for their budget. So we handle it all for them. And after a couple of years now of working with them, we've finally gotten, Sarah pushed this standard operating procedures from them, or working on it relative to working with their department heads or business unit heads to get us information and hone the processes. They didn't have processes mapped, and they did not have any chance or thought of re-engineering them. And we're just now starting that. And frankly, it's going to make us and them much more efficient relative to price changes, which they're just willy-nilly we're doing, product changes, product features. It was kind of a mess. It's taken us almost 2 years, but we're finally admitting, yeah, we get this. Operations is intimately linked, and it has to work with marketing, especially when you take a strategic marketing approach.
Absolutely. And, you might think to yourself, why is the marketing team helping with operations? And again, I will beat that drum forever. Marketing is such an influence on operations, and operation is such an influence on marketing, that we had to kind of go back and take a few steps backwards to stabilize the operations so we could do the marketing. And it was frustrating and challenging for both sides of the coin, but we're definitely at a place now that the operations are a little more standardized. And as Mike mentioned before too, we have something called the marketing mandatories. So this is process where if they have a promotion, they have a special feature or special offer they want to put out, they complete a marketing mandatory form, which isn't creative in any way. It's the details of the offer. So if we want to offer a special in the restaurant, here's the details. Will it be available to go? Will it be available just dine in? How many of these do we have to sell to reach our target goal of, whatever, $12,000 that day? And how much can we spend on paid marketing and promotion that will leave us a legitimate return on investment on marketing for this effort? And what are we trying to accomplish? Oftentimes, the individual departments or silos of the organization will say, well, we just want to offer a Mother's Day special. But it's deeper than that. We're trying to sell meals, sure, but we're trying to share the entity, create brand awareness, create a good experience for the visitors, and have them come back and revisit. So.
And if you're wondering, we're talking, this is about as low tech as you can get. It's not a restaurant, it's a very large resort with hotels. Absolutely. And restaurants, golf, blah, blah, blah. So. Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes they come to us in an unsophisticated way, if that makes sense. They say like, hey, we just want to do a Mother's Day special. And it's important to pull out that process and get those marketing mandatories completed. And again, it's not so much about the end data per se, but it's the line of thinking and making sure the team's on board and we're all working together. Mike, do you want to take entrepreneurial thinking applied to marketing? I feel like I've been talking for a while.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of hit it throughout this thing, but it's embracing the market and your customers and persona and making sure everything's lined up. Basically, in this case, marketing is not just the promotion. Of course, you have to talk to them based on how they hear and how they process. But the real thing is, what is your product? What is your product, and how does that line up with your target markets, target organizations, and customers, whether they be for profit or not profit? Does it line up? Does everything? So I've used the term market offer or offer set. It's not just your product or service, it's all your communications, your brand, your support, your service, all of that that meets it. So basically, it's being aware, first thing, of the entrepreneurial opportunities by understanding the market and then acting on it to make sure what you're selling is aligned. You got what they need, and then you communicate it effectively in a way they process and price it effectively. And it sounds simple, but sometimes we all get on these, again, the treadmill or tangents because we're so focused on getting the job of the day done. And we don't put our head up above the forest and say, all right, are we doing not just things right, but are we doing the right things to maximize our business, maximize revenue and profit, and maximize their satisfaction, them being the customer?
Absolutely. So a little quote here to wrap up from Uncle Cleve. Entrepreneurship is a mindset that can empower ordinary people to accomplish the extraordinary. And Mike and I have internalized that, bought into it. It truly is the secret sauce, we believe, to business success.
Read the book and
Yeah.
Talk to us if you have questions, but it's just one piece of this whole thing, but it really will open your eyes to some simple things you can do from Uncle Cleve. So, well, thanks very much. Now we have time for questions. Anything's on the table. It could be, I've got a situation here. Can you help me out? Or, on the fly, obviously, with this, if we don't know your business, or clarify something, or what about this? Or I'm thinking of this.
And if anybody doesn't want to type and wants to put it, he wants us to promote you to panelists so you can talk. There's a part of me that I feel like a lot of the things that he kept telling us to do is I'm guilty of. So I'm sure many of you guys are guilty of it too. So it's not as easy as they say, I know. And Mike and Sarah are actually hopefully going to be helping me with overcoming a lot of this, because as I say, sometimes I make a joke and I'm like, I would get organized, but then I'd have nothing to complain about.
I like that.
I would be
You're
much
not
more
alone.
efficient. But yeah, a lot of what they talked about today, it is really difficult for us to do. And it sounds easy when we say it in a presentation, but it takes a lot of time and energy in order to be able to focus on and make this shift. Does anyone have questions about the conversation that we were talking about, or even about things that us as an organization can do? Because, Mike and Sarah have actually come in and met with the council to talk to us about doing some of the things that they mentioned in this conversation for us at the council. Of course, we're poor, so we're trying to figure out money, but that is something that we're actively looking for, different type of grant opportunities, because we, even as an organization, recognize that the things that they're saying in here are important. You got to work smarter, not harder. I can assure you, I go in circles. Like literally, I'm looking for a presentation as we speak that if I just filed it properly, I wouldn't be spending so much time and energy trying to find it. But again, then I wouldn't be sitting here complaining to all of you about it. So, but I know that it is still early, and I really appreciate you guys all participating in this event. And I appreciate Sarah and Mike coming here and telling me the things that I all know that I was doing wrong. Like I was in the middle of doing something else and I hit the thing. It's like, delegate tasks. You might not do it well, but you just got to let it go. And I'm like, I feel like me has been told that quite a few times in the last couple of days. So it's really hard to give up that control, because when something goes wrong, you're still responsible, but you've got to be a good trainer, of which I am not a good trainer. Even though Guy Timberlake says, I can train you. And it's really funny when people look at him and be like, have fun with that. So, but I feel like everyone kind of, just really was engaged. And I think you made everybody kind of more internalize their concerns. Nobody wants to admit that they're doing this stuff wrong.
Hey, that's okay. That is all right.
So, but I really appreciate you guys all being here today. As I mentioned, this is recorded, so it'll be posted in the virtual agenda. Mike, Sarah, I can supply you with the list of attendees in case you want to follow up with any of these individuals. And again, as you guys can see, both of their contact information is displayed on the screen. I encourage you guys to reach out if you have any questions. You know, they're both from a HubZone community. They're out here with me in Garrett County.
Woo!
Weather's already
Beautiful
dropping.
Garrett.
Anybody's
Beautiful
interested, you know, we're going to be having Autumn Glory here soon in the next couple of weeks. You can come out and visit. Also, I wanted to remind everybody at 1 o'clock today, we do have a mentor protege presentation. And for those that are our members on the call, or any other companies that want to join tomorrow, we will be having our advocacy update. During tomorrow's advocacy update, we'll be covering a lot of things that are happening on Capitol Hill and what will happen if the budget doesn't get passed and what you should be expecting and preparing for. But we'll also be covering what we're going to be doing moving forward in regards to legislative priorities and opening up the floor for other companies and organizations to discuss some concerns that they might have or something that they want us to add to the docket for next year's legislative priorities for FY 2022. We have a lot of things that already made it into the executive order, like with the NDAA, and we are passing it to the Senate. So please be watching your email because we will be sending out a call to action probably in the next few days. So we hope that you all help us with participating in that so we can get some of these reforms that we've requested under the NDAA to be passed. Again, thank you, everybody, and we're signing off. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.